And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan, and this is your aviation weather outlook on this Monday, May 19th, 2025. And we have this outlook for Tuesday and into Wednesday, and what we'll be watching is an area of low pressure that's going to be scooting along the north side of the Aleutians across the lower Bering and then coming across the low end here of the Alaska Peninsula on Wednesday. And then that's going to help pull some moisture up, at least along the Alaska Peninsula, even up into lower portions of Cook Inlet, along the Kenai Peninsula, and certainly Kodiak Island. We're also watching an area of snow across the north slope and spine of the Brooks Range on this Monday into Monday night and into Tuesday. The snow will be tapering off on Tuesday, but that area of the Dalton Highway that crosses through Anatuvik Pass on over up to Dead Horse, that stretch could pick up several inches of snowfall, especially up through the passes there of the east central Brooks Range. So that will allow for low ceilings visibilities there across the north slope and along the Brooks Range. Further south, there will be some MVFR conditions in the Alaska Range and down along northeastern Gulf Coast into areas, especially the outer Panhandle, but a broad area of IFR conditions expected. Lower half of the Bering Sea, including St. Paul, and coming down across especially central western Aleutians. Tuesday afternoon, with the daytime heating, there will be some temperatures that get just above 60 degrees along the Alcan border, and there could be some cumulus buildups, perhaps a few scattered showers, isolated rumble of thunder. We still have IFR conditions along the north slope, spine of the Brooks Range and Arctic coast. Also some pockets of IFR along the northeastern Gulf Coast, including the area around Yakutat Bay and then up into the northern Panhandle. And we still see a broad area of IFR conditions over the lower Bering Sea and across the Aleutians. You're getting warmer air coming in up over the colder water, so that's going to keep some lower stratus and fog in areas there. And then for Wednesday morning, with that low crossing the lower Alaska Peninsula, we expect there to be a band of IFR conditions there up as far north as between St. Matthew and St. Lawrence, as well as the Pribilofs and down into lower Alaska Peninsula. IFR conditions will become a little more widespread on Wednesday morning along the Gulf Coast from the eastern Kenai up through Prince William Sound, through Yakutat Bay, and then especially along the intercoastal mountains of the inner channels there in the southeast. And we still have rather widespread IFR conditions along the Arctic coast, north slope, and the spine of the Brooks Range. Even though the snow by then will have diminished, we still have some low cloudiness, low stratus, and potentially some fog. And then Wednesday afternoon, we find IFR conditions still lingering, northern Panhandle, Chilkoot White Passes, Yakutat on over toward Prince William Sound, eastern Kenai. Also still IFR conditions, Arctic coast from the Lisburne Peninsula all the way through Utqiagvik to Demarcation Bay and along the north slope, and then a pocket of IFR here in the southeast Bering that includes the Pribilofs and also additional IFR conditions as you get out over the western Aleutians. Past conditions for Tuesday are looking IFR through Anatuvik Pass and the north slope as you get just south of there, MVFR, but again, still potentially low clouds, fog, snow in that region with the potential for several inches of snow to fall along that stretch of the Dalton Highway through the Brooks Range passes. And then Adigan Pass, same thing, IFR up there in the north slope, as well as through the pass, MVFR immediately south. Lake Clark and Merrill, we're looking at there in the west arm of the Alaska Range. Lake Clark could potentially have some VFR conditions, but a little further north you go, we just generally expect MVFR conditions along that west arm of the Alaska Range, all the way up through Rainy and into Windy Pass. As we get further east toward Isabel Pass, we expect VFR conditions there, though on the west side of the pass, MVFR conditions with perhaps an isolated shower or thunder shower popping up with the daytime heating, especially to the east and northeast there of Isabel Pass, Mentasta Pass. We'll see generally VFR conditions Tuesday with a slight chance of an isolated thunder shower, a few scattered showers with the afternoon and evening heating. Tanita Pass, generally MVFR conditions expected on Tuesday and down along Prince William Sound into Portage, starting out VFR Tuesday morning, giving way to MVFR conditions. And finally, Chilkoot and White will see gradually conditions deteriorate, starting out Tuesday MVFR, becoming IFR, especially as we go through the afternoon and definitely by Tuesday night. And looking at the freezing level at the surface, we find the freezing line down across the northern half of the Bering between St. Matthew and St. Paul, coming inland north of Bristol Bay. We do have some temperatures above freezing in the middle Yukon, Tanana Valley. And then we also find readings above freezing up along Cook Inlet to the lower Matsu Valley. And as far as temperatures aloft, they do come upward a bit, upwards of 6,000 feet as you get into northwest Canada, a little deeper toward the Yukon Northwest Territory, and then back out here toward the west with that low pressure that's going to be scooting along just north of the Aleutians Tuesday into early Wednesday. Freezing levels aloft do bump upwards there through the central Aleutians, 6, 8, 10,000 feet, so there is warmer air aloft coming in over the cooler waters, and with the areas of rain and some breezy conditions, we do have some gale force winds associated with that system, even some storm force gusts possible just south of the Aleutians. We find that there could be icing, moderate icing above 6, 8, and 10,000 feet along the Aleutian chain, spreading into the Alaska Peninsula. And then with the showery weather in the interior, perhaps some isolated moderate icing above 6,000 feet. We find it above 3,000 feet here along the spine of the Brooks Range North Slope due to that area of diminishing snow and low cloudiness that has moisture-laden clouds with those super cooled water droplets. And then perhaps parts of the Panhandle, especially there, maybe around Wrangell or so on Tuesday afternoon. Upper level jet stream winds, we do have winds out of the northwest across Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, upwards of 80 knots, but that's at 30,000 feet. Behind me, there is a jet core just over 100 knots south of the Aleutians in the North Pacific. As we bring it down, though, to 9,000 feet or 700 millibars, there is a stronger core of winds associated. Here's the mid-level circulation of that low, 50 to as high as 80 knots passing just south of Atka and Adak and in the North Pacific. And then at 3,000 feet, there are winds on the order of 50 plus knots passing just south of the central eastern Aleutians. And with that circulation on the north side, we have winds upwards of 40, 45 knots out of the east. And again, this low pressure circulation is heading east-southeastward. So the greatest threat of turbulence on Tuesday, pretty simply, out there across the Aleutians, spreading up into the low end there of the Alaska Peninsula. We do expect some considerable moderate turbulence surface to 3,000 feet on Tuesday.